are so back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode and another season of CUNY Uncut. We are now in season 4. Thank you for all your support last season. In season 3, we were able to have 10 episodes where we accommodated 13 different CUNY campuses. And I was just so thankful for all the different guests that we've had and all the people that I've met at all the various campuses in and around the entire CUNY system. So thank you for all your support. We have a lot of fun things coming up this season, and we're starting it off strong in STEM and social media. She already has one CUNY degree from City College in biology, and she was like, that's not enough for me. I want to be called doctor. So now she's getting her PhD at the CUNY Graduate Center in Molecular, Cellular, and Developmental Program, and all while popping up on your For You page every day. She's on social media, or you could see her in a CUNY ad. She does the research, so you don't have to. She's the one and only Denice Morán Ramirez. Welcome in.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. I need to introduce myself like that more often.
Well, listen, you deserve it. You've been doing so much. You've already been in your PhD program for what? This is your third year now?
I'm entering my third year, yeah.
Wow. So tell me about that process of kind of getting, you're what, halfway through now?
Yeah, it would be like the beginning of the halfway point, yeah.
Wow. So a PhD is a long process, and you were like, you know what? I haven't had enough at CUNY. Let me get some more. But first, let's bring it all back, and let's talk about how you started off your CUNY journey.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to study science, and I knew that City College, which is a part of the CUNY system, was like really big in the sciences. They had a medical school, and so at that time, I was like, okay, I think I want to be a medical doctor. So I applied for City College in 2016, and when I got in with like full financial aid, I was over the moon. I was really happy to go to City College and to be able to take those science classes. So yeah, when I entered in 2016, I entered straight as a biology major, and I also minored in chemistry. And I had a great time as an undergrad. I had a lot of good advisors. I met a lot of my closest friends. And so my undergraduate years were really awesome. And that's when I started research. And I think that's when that shift kind of happened from medical sciences to research sciences.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how did you originally decide that, you know what, CUNY is the right option for me? Why was that the decision process for you?
Well, I'm a New York girl, born and bred, so I knew I wanted to stay in New York. I knew that I wanted to be near my support system. I knew that the city was where I felt comfortable. Growing up, my mom worked in Manhattan here on 34th Street, and so I grew up every summer here in the city, and I felt like I needed to continue that journey and to continue being in the city because I'm a city girl.
Of course.
And so yeah, so that really is what led my decision into wanting to go to a CUNY school so that I could be in the heart of the city. They have campuses all over the city, so I knew that's what I wanted, and City College being so strong in the sciences just felt like the perfect match. And then when I visited the campus before I had gotten accepted with my mom, it was just such a beautiful campus. It was like the best of both worlds. It was like outside the gate, you have Harlem, which is like bustling, and it's always like there's something always going on. That was something that was so exciting. And then when you go through the gates, it's like a beautiful college campus. There's like trees and like green grass where you can lay out, which I did all the time. And I really loved that duality. So I knew that that was where I needed to go. Like I needed that city life, but also that university feel. So that is literally what felt like drew me to City College.
Yeah, I do have to say I'm so jealous of your campus as a Hunter student with 3 buildings. Listen, the construction's almost done. Some of you know, but like nothing compares to that City College campus. It's absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, it's used in movies a lot. They use it for there was a show called Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and they used it as like the Columbia campus, and it was City College, but they passed it as Columbia.
Wow.
I know.
Bougie.
Bougie.
Okay, well, science isn't something that you can necessarily just walk into, you know? Like, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of research. How did you kind of find that was the path you wanted to go down?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a mix of like interest and maybe just like a sprinkle of spite. Because when I was in high school, I had a science teacher tell me that she didn't really think I was cut out for the sciences when I told her that was something that I wanted to go into for college. And I needed her recommendation to take an IB biology class in my senior year that would then propel me into science, like for college. And she didn't recommend me. And she was like, I just don't think that this is for you. And that made me really upset. And I was like, well, I'm not going to take that. I'm going to apply anyway. So I didn't get into the IB biology class in my senior year. And IB biology is like a world level biology. And I wasn't able to take that course. And so I kind of already felt like I was a little behind. But regardless, I still applied for a biology major when I applied to City College and I got in. And so that was enough to tell me like I think I am cut out for this. And that is kind of what like made me want to go into the sciences. I mean, I always really liked science. In middle school, I would stay after school for science programs. Like that was just stuff that I really found interesting, like understanding the stuff that was going on around me. That was just always an interest. And then having someone tell me, well, I don't think this is for you, just didn't feel right. So having that interest and then having someone not believe in me made me want to believe in myself even more. So when I got into college, that was kind of what I wanted to do. I only thought that like the only way you could go into science was to be in medicine. Like I come from an immigrant household. We don't know like no one in my family has ever been a scientist, you know? So when I thought about science, I thought about medical science, being a doctor, being a nurse. That's what it is. That's what studying science is. And so when I started taking science courses, I really loved it. And then I got into the pre-med program. And with the pre-med program, you start doing like volunteerships at hospitals. And my first volunteership, I just didn't feel it. Like it just wasn't for me. And I was so devastated because I was like, well, science is like what I want to do, but I don't think medicine is what I want to do. So what do I do now? And I was doing well in my science classes. I loved learning about like, you know, different parts of science, whether it was environmental science, whether it was developmental, neuro, like all that stuff was all interesting to me. So I walked into class one day. I was just like feeling very lost. I was a sophomore at this point. I walked into class one day, and my professor, he used to put up like these flyers for different things going on around campus, different opportunities. And there was an opportunity to do outreach in middle schools, like teach them science, but also get research experience in a lab. So it was like a 2-for-1, like do outreach and also get to work in a lab. And I always liked I'm loud. Like I like to talk a lot. So I was like, okay, I could be a teacher. I could teach science. Like that sounds fun to me. I want to teach younger kids science. I want to get them excited about science the way I am. So that sounded like a great opportunity. And then the opportunity to also just get experience in a research lab was something I had never done. And at that point I was so lost of like what I was going to do with my life. So I applied, and at that time the flyer said they were only looking for first semester sophomores and freshmen. And I was already a second semester sophomore, and by the time I applied, I would have like been a first semester junior.
Wow.
So I was already past like what they were looking for. But I was just like, I'm gonna pour my heart into this application, and I wrote this whole essay about like why I really wanted to do this. They interviewed 20 students, and they picked 3, and I was one of them.
Hey, there you go.
So yeah, and that research experience is what completely changed my life. Like as dramatic as that sounds, it really did change my life. Going to middle schools, being able to teach younger students like science, getting them excited when they saw somebody who looked like them, who dressed like them. I remember me and a little kid had the same pair of Jordans. He was like, "You got those?" I was like, I do. So like, you know, and then they were more interested in like what I had to say because they could relate to me. And that's something I've carried with me ever since then, is like to get people to be interested in what you want them to be interested in, you have to relate to them. And that's what I really try to channel with like my content, is like relating to people, showing them I'm just like you, but also I'm a scientist and you can be too. So yeah, so that experience is really what got me into research. After the outreach part of it, I got to be in the lab, and I worked under a graduate student, and she taught me a lot about like her project. She let me take a part of her project, and I loved it. I loved being behind the scenes. I loved being in a research lab. It literally felt like I was applying everything that I was learning in class at the bench. It was so crazy.
That's really wonderful. I'm very glad that you were able to find yourself through CUNY and really decided, you know what, although somebody told me that I can't do it, I'm going to prove them wrong anyways and do that. So I'm so glad that you found your dedication for science through that. And through that, opportunities arose as well. What were some of the things that you found for yourself at City College that helped you prepare yourself for what's next?
Yeah, I would literally say my network. Like the people I met at City College, my advisors, my peers, like my PI, like I never felt so supported. Like going from a place where I felt like I had to like fight every day to be the top of the class, to prove myself often with a teacher who told me that, I don't really think you're cut out for this, to go from that to go to a place where I was so supported, like City College, CUNY, like they gave me that. They gave me that support. They saw me. They didn't care how I looked. They didn't care how I talked, how much I talked. They were just like, yeah, like you got it. Like, you are excelling in your classes. You're doing all these extracurriculars. Like we think that you are like cut out. Like they basically believed in me, When I joined, like as a freshman, when I got into City College, I went straight into science classes, and I guess my transition was like really well because I was doing really good in my classes. I was pulled into the dean of science's office, and they told me that they had this program called CCAP, and it's like for preparedness for students from underrepresented backgrounds. They give them funding, they give them opportunities, they give them workshops just to help their professional development. And they told me, we usually only take sophomores. We like track the freshmen that come in depending on how good they are, and by sophomore year we offer them a spot. But as a freshman, they brought me in and they were like, "We want to offer you a spot now." Like,
wow.
Yeah, I know. They were like, "We think you're doing really well. Like we see you like popping out at the club events. Like, you're really like making like an effort to really be part of this community. We want you to join CCAP now." So I became part of CCAP as a freshman, and I also think that played a huge part in my trajectory. When I told them I wanted to go from medicine to research, they were supportive. They were like, "Yeah, you want to go to research? Great. Now we have these research opportunities for you." Like the shift was so fast. They were giving me all these opportunities to volunteer in hospitals, and then when I told them I don't really think I want that, they were like, "Okay, well, here are all these research opportunities." They paid for me to go to conferences. Like once I joined my lab, they had paid for me to go to conferences. They were able to give me a stipend so that I could focus on research and focus on school and not have to work, because I had been working since I was 14.
Wow.
Yeah, my mom was a single parent, so as soon as I could get a job, I did. I was working at a pizzeria. I was working at country clubs, like over the summer. I was like a pool person, like literally any way to just make a little money. And so in college, that continued. I was working through the summers. Sometimes I had a part-time job during the semester, and then CCAP was able to give me a stipend so that I could focus on my studies, so I could focus on my research.
Wow.
And yeah, like that community helped me a lot. And it was just having that community that I had never felt before really shifted my mindset, like completely. Like I went from being like kind of like an insecure kid in high school and feeling like I wasn't sure if like I was cut out. I wasn't sure, I tried my hardest to believe in myself because my mom told me like we have to make it. Like you gotta work hard. So like I pushed myself for a long time, but then getting to CUNY and finding that community is like that helped me like get as far as I have now. And it made me want to come back to CUNY and want to apply to the PhD program because of how good of a time I had as an undergrad in City College. And I rotated at Hunter. I would have been happy at any of the CUNY campuses because I felt that at all of them. When I rotated at Hunter, the support I had there in just the 3 months I was there, I was like, "Oh my God, I love this place." Like, the commute was just too long for me. But I would have,
Fair enough.
I would have definitely considered going to Hunter as well because that community was there too. And yeah, I really, it's going to sound so corny, but I really do love CUNY.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that because it's like you got all these resources and all these opportunities through City, and usually it seems like people use CUNY as a stepping stone, especially when they're about to get their doctorate or something like that. They'll try and go to a more prestigious school. Some people go all the way up to the Ivies, which I say congratulations to you. Right. But you decided to stay. You wanted to stay, which I find very, very inspirational and very powerful. Was there something about that PhD program or the research that you were doing that really made you say, "I want to stay"?
So the research lab I'm getting my PhD in now is actually that first research lab that gave me that opportunity.
Wow.
That propelled me into research. So it just felt like the perfect like circle moment to come back and get my PhD there, because that was a lab that inspired me to want to become a scientist, that made me want to study neurobiology, neurodevelopment. Like that lab is what opened the door to research for me. And the relationship I had with the people there, the relationship I had with the PI, like I felt so supported. It was okay for me to ask questions. It was okay for for me not to know things. It was okay for me to like be a human and have family stuff. Like my PI never made me feel bad when I'd be like, hey, I'm really sorry, I have to take care of my grandma today, like I can't come in. Like he would be like, that's fine, like, you know, like take care of your family, because he's a family man himself. So like having those values, those like morals that exist in that lab was like, I need to go back there. And I mean, City College, like I said, City College helped me so much. So like the opportunity to join the PhD, like join for my PhD program in that lab at City College, just felt right. Like it felt right to go back and get my PhD there after that having been my first research experience.
Well, I mean, so I'm seeing healthy work relationships, healthy environments, and it's just really helping you succeed and let you focus on the research itself, which we still haven't heard about. I'm very excited to hear what type of research that you're doing in the lab.
Yeah, okay. So our lab is developmental neurobiology. So we specifically studied the development of the retina. And the retina is yes, exactly, the back part of your eye. And it's like this layer of tissue. And basically, its job is to capture light that enters through your eye. And it converts those light signals into electrical signals, then sends them to your brain to create the image that you're seeing right now.
Wow.
So
okay.
we study how that develops. And so the retina is made up of 7 different cell types. And these cell types arise from like a pool of cells. So this pool of cells is just like all the same cells, like stem cells. They're all the same. And then over time, over developmental time, they differentiate to become these specialized, specific cells, and they position themselves in this perfect laminar positioning, like this perfect layered positioning in the retina. And they're specialized. They each have their own job. They each have their own function, their own like characteristics, and they all arise from one singular pool of all the same cells. And what we're trying to understand is what are the mechanisms that tell them, hey, you're going to become this cell, you're going to become that cell, you're going to have this job, you're going to have that job. If we can understand how during development each of them forms and like what are the cues for each of them to become their specialized cell type, then potentially we can inform like genetic therapies that are trying to replace those cells that have been lost in people who have retinal degenerative diseases. So in people who have those diseases, once they lose those cell types, they don't come back because neurons do not regenerate. So like somatic cells, like the cells in your skin, you get a cut, they regenerate, right? You get a little scar, it patches right up. If you lose the neurons in your brain or in your eye, like the ones in the retina, they don't regenerate. And so people who have retinal degenerative diseases who begin to lose those cell types eventually lose their vision. And so if we can understand what the steps are, almost like what the recipe is, what's the recipe to make a retina? What are the steps? When do you add the egg? How much sugar? How much flour? If we can figure that out, then we can potentially guide a cell, like a stem cell, to become a specific type of cell in the retina and maybe put it back into somebody who's lost their vision.
So essentially, you're trying to help people see who have lost their vision in certain types of diseases.
Yeah. So like we're like the background players. So we are literally studying all the way down to the molecular level of it. Like we're looking at DNA, we're looking at genes, what genes turn on, what proteins are being made that make these specific cell types. And hopefully with that information, people who do work on genetic therapies, on gene therapies, people who work on those kind of studies, our information, what we learn can inform that, can inform, hey, this is what we found about how the retina develops. You can then use this to develop a gene therapy to maybe replenish that cell type in somebody who's lost it and potentially restore vision.
Wow. Yeah. That is amazing. And it seems like there's a lot of, I guess jargon is the right way to use it, with science. And I know that you're trying your best to kind of break things down. How do you try and do that, especially because you post on TikTok and like social media so often? How do you simplify those things to teach it to the next generation?
Yeah, that's such a huge like issue, I think, that a lot of people talk about in science communication. And science communication is a like up and coming field in itself, where scientists want to bridge that gap of like the person who's not in science and the person who is in science, because there is a lot of jargon, and the reality is that jargon back in the day was just invented to keep other people out of science. That's just how it was. And now we don't want that. Now we want people to be in science. So a lot of that jargon is kind of not really useful. A lot of times when I would read research papers, I'm like, they didn't have to use that word. Like they could have simplified that so much.
Right.
So I think one of the ways that I try to really simplify to my students, because I'm also a teacher, is to literally use like TikTok references, cultural references. Like I feel like that's how I tie them back in. That's how I relate to the things that we talk about, that I teach them when I teach them foundational biology, because I teach Bio 102, which is like foundations of biology. I really try to tie in like culture, content. We were talking earlier about how we're chronically online. That helps.
It does.
It helps. It helps. I can relate to my students. Every year, me and my students get further in age because I'm getting older and I'm getting the same, like I'm teaching the same class. So I'm getting all freshmen. So I need to know what's happening in the media to relate to them. So that helps a lot. Like TikTok references, like just like meme references. And it sounds so corny, but it really does like tie it in, and it really helps them understand. And I try to do that on social media as well. When I post on my story, when I post on TikTok, when I talk about science, like I try to keep it light and I try to keep it relatable as much as possible, because the jargon is a barrier. It is a real barrier to people who are not in science to understand people who are in science. With my friends, with my family, like I'm telling you, the cake recipe, that's my favorite analogy. Like I'm trying to figure out how to build a retina the way you would trying to figure out how to build a cake if you didn't have the recipe. I'm trying to figure out the recipe.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, it's very important to be posting about all the science issues that are going on and kind of explain things for people on social media, but that's not all that you use it for. Can you explain a little bit of what else you do on your social media and why?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, that is when I decided to create Deescientist. Originally, my Instagram page was just my personal page where I would just post my dog, my friends, my family, myself. And I wanted to then, it was the pandemic, so I couldn't be in the lab. Undergrads were not allowed in the lab. And I was feeling a disconnect from like what I loved. I was like, I can't be in the lab and I really want to connect to science somehow. Like I don't want to lose that part of myself. So I decided I wanted to start a science page where I would share just myself doing like funny kits, like they sell science kits like for kids, and I wanted to do those on video.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that.
Yeah, like the discovery kits. I wanted to just open them up, do like an unboxing, do an experiment on camera from a discovery kit. That's what I wanted to do. So I decided that I wanted to make this page, and the more I thought about it, I was like, well, I don't want to separate my science identity from who I am, because it's not a separate identity. It is who I am. And so instead of creating a whole new page called Deescientist, I decided to convert my personal page into Deescientist, and I started to post science content while still posting my normal content, which is my friends, my family, what I like to do on the weekends. And so still to this day, it's just a mix. Like some videos will be, 3 things you can do to get into research. And then the next one will be like, look at this thing I bought. Like
yeah, like your fashion haul.
Yeah, my fashion haul. Exactly. So things like that, I think, also help me stay relatable, because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm in science, but I also love fashion. I also love hanging out with my friends. I love going to the movies. Like these are all things that like is just who I am, but I also am in science. I also am a scientist, and I want to share that with people. So yeah, so I like to use my page as both a personal page to share who I am, and then also to share what I do in the lab and just everyday things that a PhD student goes through. And yeah, I think that duality helps me stay grounded as well.
A real role model is what I see. I mean, I'm very impressed with everything that you've been doing, especially on social media. I think it's very powerful, and I think it's going to help a lot of people kind of find themselves, especially within the CUNY system. You're talking about all these different opportunities that they've gotten, especially in a time where STEM the field is a little shaky right now, especially with like funding and stuff like that. A little while ago, you were posting about like having to write grants out and like try and apply for money. So it's really a process for all these CUNY students. How would you advise students who are looking to get into STEM, but they don't know how to get funding, they don't know where to start? What would you advise them to do?
Yeah, so I definitely think for undergrads, they should not be afraid to just send emails out. I think the best thing an undergrad can do who's looking to get into research is just figure out like what they're interested in. Like what kind of research do you want to go into? Is it cancer research? Is it neurobio? Is it chemistry? And then once you kind of hone in what you want to do, then on the CUNY website, you can see all of the faculty who have labs. So you can go on there, all their info is there. Their emails are there, like what their labs does, a description of what they do. I tell my own undergrads, like, if you're interested in something in a particular lab, read one of their papers. And it is going to be jargony. It's okay to have questions. That's a good thing. You want to show up with questions like, hey, I read your paper. I didn't really understand this. Can you explain this to me? That is something that like research scientists, like PIs, they like that. Like, wow, this student is curious. That's the most important thing. It's not about having the perfect grades. It's not about being like, a straight A's. It's about being curious. Being a scientist means being curious, wanting to get to the bottom of any question that you might have. And so showing that is really important. So for undergrads who want to get into research, finding out what they like, finding out a lab they might be interested in, reading one of those papers, and then just sending an email. Hey, I'm really interested in the work that you're doing in XYZ. I read your paper in XYZ. I had some questions. Can we meet? You meet with the PI, then you say, hey, do you have an opportunity for me to join your lab? I just want to volunteer my time. They get free hands to work. We're always looking for free hands to work. And then you get research experience. Some college campuses at CUNY give you credit for research. You can do independent research, you can do honors research, and you get class credits. So you can get experience, you can get credits, and then the lab gets free hands, And so it's a win-win situation. And then for graduate students who are looking to do to get into a lab and to get funding, it is a lot of writing. That's just the reality of it. And when I joined the PhD program, I guess I kind of had like rose-colored glasses because the lab I was joining at that time had a grant. I was going in knowing I had a fellowship, and then that fellowship kind of got ripped from me.
Ooh.
Yeah, this year. And it was supposed to be a 3-year fellowship, and I only got 1 year of it. And so it put a lot of pressure on my lab, who now has to pay me, because as PhD students, your lab or your university, they're the ones who give you a salary, because you have to, by contract, you have to work in the lab 40 hours a week. It's like a full-time job. So you can't get another job. Like contractually, you are not allowed to get another job. So the university pays your salary, but more specifically, your lab pays your salary. And so once I lost that fellowship, I couldn't get paid, and my lab had to my PI had to figure out a way to get us paid. But when I spoke to him about it, I was super stressed out. And he goes, well, this is just the reality of being in research. It's getting harder, but the reality is we are always having to fight for funding and, write grants. But when you do good research, when you really like what you do, like writing grants is going to sound crazy, but it can get easy because you're just talking, this is what I want to do. This is what I propose. These are the experiments I'm going to do to explore that. And so I just finished writing a grant last week. My first individual grant ever, because I've helped my PI write grants for our whole lab, we all kind of contribute, but this one was all me, an individual research grant, and it was one of the hardest things I had to do, but it was also so rewarding to be able to get that in. So I would advise grad students that are either about to enter a PhD program or in a PhD program to look for those scholarships, look for those fellowships, and I can help. Reach out to me. I just wrote an F-31. I feel like an F-31 pro. I want to actually do a crash course. In the fall, me and one of the clubs I'm in, we're going to do a crash course on the F-31, and I'm going to lead that because there's another deadline in December. And I was the only graduate student who applied from City College for the August deadline. So I'm hoping to increase more graduate students to apply in December by doing this crash course.
Gotcha. All right. Very inspirational. You've been doing so much, and you should be so proud of yourself. But the last question that I have for you is, what's next? What's your future goals?
What are my future goals? Okay, so, I have so much I want to accomplish still. Obviously I want to get my PhD, but this honestly just feels like the beginning. I want to get my PhD. I want to become an expert in my field, but then I really want to dive into science communication. I want to share science with younger generations. I want to get them inspired. I want to have a TV show. I want to do science on TV and pull other people into science and get them excited about it. And then there's also this awesome genomics center at the American Museum of Natural History.
Ooh.
I might want to work there. I have all these ideas of what I want to do. Maybe I'll return to a lab one day because I do love the lab, but I think I'm ready for once I get my PhD, I'm ready to branch off and see what's in science communication, see what it could be to be a museum curator in the genomics department. Those are things that are really interesting to me, just so that I can be in more accessible to the public. I want to be in the public eye. I want to be able to talk to people. And I love what I do behind the scenes at a research lab, but it's very independent. So I want the next steps to be me on a public facing position. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, listen, you know where to find her, Deescientist. Check her out on Instagram, on TikTok. Denice, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being the first guest of season 4.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited that you let me come on here and tell my story, and this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Of course. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to the season premiere of season 4. We have a lot of exciting stuff coming up later in the season, so make sure to check us out on social media and make sure to download the CUNY TV app. And as always, I'm your host, David Horn. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.